Former Tennessee quarterback Nico Iamaleava may have just sent TCU back to the negotiating table with Josh Hoover.
You are Locked On Horned Frogs, your daily podcast on the TCU Horned Frogs. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Locked On Horned Frogs, your team every day. I'm your host, Stephen Simcox. I've been covering TCU athletics for the past 12 years. We're brought to you today by Monarch Money. I'll tell you later on in the show about Monarch Money, your all-in-one financial command center. We'll also talk about TCU baseball sweeping Kansas. They have now won 6 Big 12 games in a row and are right there with West Virginia at the top of the Big 12 conference. TCU women's basketball adding a few players from the transfer portal over the weekend. Mark Campbell continues to get things done. A big-time linebacker prospect for the 2026 class visited TCU football over the weekend, but we start today with news from the SEC. And you might say to yourself, why are we doing that on Locked On Horned Frogs? Well, it always comes back to TCU. And in this case, Nico Iamaleava, quarterback from Tennessee, now former Tennessee quarterback, I guess I should say. He announced his intention to enter the transfer portal on Saturday. Why is this significant? Well, he was a starter at Tennessee last year, a team that went to the college football playoff. He was a 5-star all-everything recruit a few years ago. He leaves Tennessee with a very young quarterback room, a very inexperienced quarterback room. Jake Merklinger, who hasn't played much in his career, he was part of the 2024 class. George McIntyre, a 4-star recruit out of the 2025 class. That's your quarterback room right now for the Tennessee Volunteers. Nico apparently staged the first ever college football holdout of sorts. He was not happy with his contract. Reportedly, according to ESPN, this is from Chris Lowe, before the winter portal closed, the winter transfer portal closed, Iamaleava asked for more money. He was set to make $2.5 million this upcoming season. He was hoping for something more in the $4 million range. Tennessee did not budge. They continued to not budge through spring practice. Nico decided on Friday he would not show up to practice. His teammates were frustrated. His coaches were frustrated. Saturday was the orange and white spring game. He was not there. He told the coaching staff he's going to move on. So basically, he said, I need more money. Tennessee said, no, thank you. And so he's going to take his talents elsewhere. The SEC does not allow you to transfer in the conference in the spring portal window. So he'll be looking outside the conference to find his new destination. It also means if Tennessee is going to bring in an experienced signal caller for this upcoming season, they'll be looking outside the conference as well. Which quarterbacks do you think they'll look at? Could one of them be a guy that threw for almost 4,000 yards last season? That's right. I'm not saying it's happening, but I think TCU needs to be on alert and ready for the possibility that Tennessee tries to communicate with Josh Hoover. They're not supposed to communicate with him. That's tampering. You're correct. That doesn't stop people from doing it. So what can TCU do? How can they be proactive through this? Well, first off, I'll give you peace of mind by saying this. I did a show, I think it was back in January, talking about Josh Hoover and the team as a whole. There was a list that came out of the highest compensated players in college football. Josh Hoover was the one of them. He's making over $1 million in NIL money. Now, is that the stone cold truth? I don't know. But he's a quarterback at a Power 4 institution. I think he's being paid well. I also think he's being paid well because TCU has good funding. They have good resources. And from everything we've heard through the NIL era so far, TCU has focused their efforts on retaining talent with their money. Yes, they'll go in the transfer portal, they'll throw a bag at somebody, they'll do that in the high school recruits as well. But the main thing that they have done is they look at dudes who have produced and players they need, and they find ways to keep them on the roster. That's what they've been about. So I have faith that they're going to do that here with Josh Hoover. But I think there's a good chance Josh Hoover gets a raise now before the season starts. This is how coaches work. This is how the coaching ecosystem works, right? A big-time job comes open, whether the coach is interested in it or not. If it gets floated out there that he could be a possibility, suddenly he might be walking with a new contract. And you might say to yourself, well, shouldn't TCU stand firm on this if the situation arises and say, no, you've got your deal. This is it. Go play. Well, they've done that in the past. I believe that's why Dominic Williams played at Oklahoma last year, because he would come to the table every year, every semester, and say, hey, I need more money. I'm doing this and that. I need more compensation. And finally, TCU said, maybe you should look elsewhere. But in this particular case, even if you are not a Josh Hoover truther, which I am, I think he's a good QB. I feel like he's grown up a lot over the past year and a half. I'm super excited about what he's going to do this year. Third year in a big time in a system, understanding it, knowing what needs to go on, all of those things. But even if you're not totally in that camp, if he left tomorrow, which I'm not saying he is, I'm just saying TCU has to be diligent about this. They have to be on their guard. What does your quarterback room look like? Ken Seals, Adam Schobel. You could dip in the portal in the spring, but you're probably going to be paying a pretty similar price tag to what you would be paying Josh Hoover. And while I believe TCU has done a good job of putting talent around him, I would not consider Josh to be a bus driver, meaning this is not a dink and dunk guy who's just protecting the ball and churning out some first downs, eating up time of possession, engineering drives. No, this is a dude who's throwing it all over the place and was the biggest part of your offense last season. So you need him this year. You've been working for the past 2 seasons, in the off season and during the year, building towards this particular season where you're at the top of your development cycle. You've got a defense that's got a lot of returners and a returning coordinator. You have an offense that has a number of returners and a returning coordinator. This is the year you go for broke. There have been no real names floated out there yet because nothing is official at the moment. But I have seen some Tennessee fans, as they sort of meander around the country and think, who should we go after? Josh Hoover is a name that comes up as, hey, this dude had a really good season. Could he be a possibility? I'm conflicted about the way this situation played out. Going back to Tennessee for a second. In some ways, I feel like this is how the market's supposed to work. Nico thought he was worth more money than he was getting. He expressed that to Tennessee. They said, you know what? We don't agree. We don't think you're that dude. So he'll go elsewhere, and I'm sure he'll get a pretty similar price tag to what he's asking for. And Tennessee can move on and either go get somebody in the portal, which we hope it's not Josh Hoover, or stick with their young guys. And the wins and losses will tell us who was right. If Nico goes and wins 11 games somewhere and makes the playoffs and Tennessee struggles, they'll look pretty silly. If Tennessee is able to plug and play with somebody else, and Nico goes somewhere and can't replicate what he did with the Volunteers last season, well, then we'll have our answer in that way too. But this whole experience is also a prime example of what's wrong with college sports right now. And the simple truth is, there's no guidelines to this. There's no binding contracts. There's no real repercussions for just bolting at any time. And these programs need players. They need talented players. So these players look at the landscape and they say, hey, I have leverage. I can demand this. And if my demands aren't met, I can take my talent somewhere else. It also made me remember early last season, UNLV was off to a nice start. And Matthew Sluka, who was a pretty big name in the portal last offseason. Now, depending on who you believe, this is the story. His camp went to UNLV and said, hey, I know we agreed upon this, but we're winning games. I'm playing well. I need more money. And UNLV was like, good luck. We're not doing that. And so he redshirted and decided he would hit the transfer portal at the end of the year. Now, that was not a full-on holdout. But if it played out in that way, it was a, hey, I'm negotiating mid-season. I'm doing a good job. I'm doing better than you expected. I need to get compensated for it. This was a NFL style, I don't like what my contract says. I'm not showing up to camp. Deal with it. And the school called his bluff. So now he'll have to go elsewhere, and we'll see where he ends up. But TCU is going to have to be careful here. I think there's a decent chance they might have to up the ante a little bit in what they're paying Josh. Because you need him on the roster. You need him on this team. And if somebody else is willing to throw a bag at him, in the case of Tennessee, they're desperate for quarterback help, then you have to compete with that. And you hope that it's not just about the money. You hope that the foundation that they've laid with Josh over the last few years would be a big factor too, if it came to that. But he's a heck of a talent. And that would be a tempting scenario for anybody if it came down to it. When we come back, a 3-star linebacker visited TCU over the weekend, and he seems like he'd be a great fit in Andy Avalos' system. Monarch Money, I told you about him at the beginning of the show. Ever check your bank account and wonder, where the heck did my money go? I've been there before. I'm sure you have too. Download the Monarch Money app today. It's not just a budgeting app, but they do that well. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place so you stop managing your money and start building wealth. It's all in one convenience, easy collaboration with your partner or spouse. You can share and track personal goals and stay on the same page without stress. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com. Code LOCKEDONCollege for 50% off your first year. Monarch Money. Download the app today. Take control of your finances at monarchmoney.com. Code LOCKEDONCollege for 50% off your first year. TCU had linebacker Joseph Credit on campus over the weekend on an official visit. This is according to Joseph's own social media accounts. He's a linebacker at Pearland High School in the Houston area. Stands at 6 feet tall, 185 pounds. 205. 6 feet tall, 205. And watching him on film, TCU's made a big time effort to go get what we call that stud linebacker position, essentially a stand-up edge rusher. That's an area of the field where they don't really have the personnel they need, or they didn't have the personnel they needed when Andy Avalos took over. So dudes like Chad Woodfork coming in, Keelan Abrams, and then also some guys that are coming back, like obviously Devin Deal, Jonathan Bax, a few others. But Joseph Credit is your more traditional inside linebacker. He is not a stand-up edge rusher. However, one thing that I saw when I watched him, really good in blitz situations. If you need somebody to come downhill and light up a running back and get a sack, he's your dude. He has 11 sacks over 2 seasons at Pearland as a sophomore and junior. He's around the ball a lot. Pretty much all of his highlights are coming down and making plays in the run game or rushing the passer. Not a lot in coverage. That doesn't mean he can't do it, but at least in high school, for the most part, that's where they're using him as an in the box, old school, get downhill and make tackles type of linebacker. But that blitzing aspect is really good for what Andy wants to do. He wants to bring a lot of pressure from different angles and do those types of things. Sure tackler, loves contact, all the things you want in a linebacker. So this is me speculating. I don't think they would make him into a stand-up edge. Like, that's not my instinct. But it's nice to sort of have that option in your back pocket if you have a dude who is relentless when it comes to getting after the quarterback and making plays. So that's a good sign. He has offers from Arizona State, Baylor, Kansas, and others. He's a 3-star prospect according to 247 Sports. 2-year starter at the varsity level. Another player that is making plays at the highest level of 6A football, which is good to see. But the violence and the intensity when he makes a play really pops off the screen when you watch him. Good at reading his keys, getting off blocks, making tackles, has the athleticism to go side to side, sideline to sideline, and make plays on the edge. And then you also have that element of rushing the passer as well. I'll be interested to see during his senior year if he adds a little bit more in the area of being able to cover out of the backfield and win some of those one-on-one matchups, because that's a huge key as well. But checks a lot of the boxes that you want at that linebacker position. And they're going to need depth there. I mean, it's a pretty thin unit as is right now. Caleb Alarmzor, Nnamdi Obizor, really good. Max Carroll behind them. I like Max. Been a good special teamer. Has made plays. But once you get past Max, it's a number of like walk-on guys. Maybe Sam Haley, the freshman coming in from Tennessee. I mean, could he be a dude there? For sure, he could. But you would think it's going to take some time. And even if he's a solid player, you're still talking about a linebacker position where once Nnamdi and Caleb leave, you don't really have 2 set guys. So you're probably filling at least one of those spots with the portal, if not this offseason, next offseason. And then you're hoping that your young players can step up and contribute quickly. Now, he's not committed yet. Okay, so I guess I shouldn't talk like he is. But did come on an official visit and is at least listening to what the staff has to say. I would say this is a big-time priority, though, making sure you have that ability and that depth along the linebacker position. And he also just looks like a fun prospect because of his ability to rush the passer, because of his ability to get off blocks and make plays in the run game. And he just plays linebacker the right way. He plays it the way you want your linebackers to play, with a nastiness and a mean streak that, you know, I say that in an endearing way. We talk about defensive players and needing that attitude and that intensity to succeed. So we'll see if the coaching staff can bring him home. But at least they were able to get him in on a visit. And this is, you know, as we transition out of spring camp into the summer, we're hitting the peak recruiting time for the 2026 class. A lot of these players are making their decisions over the next few months because they want to focus on being at their best in their senior year of high school and their real last run at it. When we talk about winning a state title and doing some of those things. So we're approaching that time of year where it's really imperative that you get these guys locked in and start getting the numbers pumped up for sure. When we come back, TCU baseball sweeps Kansas. TCU men's basketball adds a couple players. We'll talk about both of those things next here on Locked on Horned Frogs. It's your team every day. If you're a plumber, if you work in the HVAC industry, you need to use SupplyHouse today. Get the supplies you need from the site made for skilled trades. SupplyHouse, whether you're into plumbing, HVAC, or electrical work, SupplyHouse is a reliable way to order products online. Their easy-to-use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest product info to help you get the job done right. Need help with an order? SupplyHouse offers expert support and industry-leading service, so you'll always talk to a real person. And for trade pros looking for an extra edge, their free Trade Master program offers exclusive perks like a dedicated phone line, free shipping, and discounts on every order. Thousands of skilled professionals are already taking advantage. Now it's your turn. Join the Trade Master program today at supplyhouse.com/TM and start ordering plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies with just a few clicks. Plus, use promo code SH5 for 5% off your first order. That's supplyhouse.com. TCU baseball has won 6 in a row. They swept BYU last weekend. They swept Kansas this past weekend. And they did it in dominating fashion. Kansas came into this series first place in the Big 12. They were ranked number 22 in the country, according to D1 Baseball. They led the Big 12 in home runs. They were second in the nation in home runs coming into this series. TCU pitching staff held them to 6 runs. Tommy Lepore, Cole Klecker, Cademan Parker did an outstanding job. Now, in Cole's case, didn't go that deep in the game. Braden Sloan comes in. He throws the ball well. Trevor Baumler threw really well in some high leverage situations on Saturday. Today, Cademan Parker, I didn't think he had his best stuff, but I thought he competed really well. He gave up a leadoff home run, but after that settled in nicely and gave away the bullpen again, and they shut the door once again. The lineup, they were able to score. They scored 14 runs on Friday night, a bunch of runs early in that Friday night game to take the lead and give Lepore some breathing room. And then Saturday really struggled to hit the ball consistently. But Isaac Cadena scored on a wild pitch. And then a few batters later, Carson Bowen had a big 2-out hit to drive in a run. Cole Kramer hit a leadoff triple and then scored later on in the next inning. And they just manufactured some runs and found a way to win 4-3. And then on Sunday, pulled away late, won 7-2. Just really can't say enough about the job they've done. They're halfway through conference play now, and they are 11-1. Got a series with UCF coming up. This will be a Thursday, Friday, Saturday series because of Easter, and a midweek game against DBU. But that was a statement series win, series sweep of Kansas over the last 3 days, and really good job by Kirk Sarloos and that team getting the job done. Before we go, I want to tell you about a couple additions for TCU women's basketball. Marta Suarez, a forward for the Cal Golden Bears. She is now a Horned Frog. Came over to the Frogs on the transfer portal, averaged 13 points and 7 rebounds per game last year. I really like this pickup. Watching her play, she can put the ball on the deck and score. She's got a good mid-range shot. She's got a good-looking three-point shot, too. Hit a bunch of threes at the top of the key, trailing the play. Has a high-arcing kind of rainbow shot. Willing passer. I mean, her assist numbers are not crazy. She ended up with 2.5 assists per game last year. But she made some good no-look passes. Had a few plays where she was leading the break. I mean, was a jack-of-all-trades type of player, and I'm super excited to see her in the pace and space kind of pick-and-roll system that Mark Campbell runs, because with what she can do in the mid-range and her passing ability, I think she's going to be a big asset to this team. Also 6'3", plays into the next person I'm going to talk about, but very obvious this team is trying to get taller and get more size to compete in a better way this upcoming season. Kennedy Basham from Arizona State. 5.5 points and 6.5 rebounds last year. 6'7". So another 6'7" player to go along with Clara Silva and 2 freshmen, all standing at 6'7". A big emphasis on getting longer and bigger in the front court by TCU women's basketball this offseason. We'll be back tomorrow, and we'll be here all week. It's Locked On Horned Frogs, your team every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcast. Please subscribe to the YouTube channel.